Dear students, once again, I'm Dr. Pamela Nizaimana, still taking you through this course unit, Special Needs and Inclusive Education. In a previous session, we discussed the concepts used in special needs and inclusive education. And you were asked to look through the twin track approach and also to search for the definitions and understanding of the following concepts. That is normalization, mainstream, diversity, equity, equality, reasonable accommodation. So these are also some other additional concepts that we use in special needs. But what we discussed in the previous sessions, they are the most key concepts that you will always meet and be able to explain. Let's hear from each other so that we share what you searched about the definitions of these concepts. Thank you very much. In today's session, we shall discuss the development and trends in education that led to special needs education and inclusive education. So when we look at education of children with disabilities, it didn't happen just like that. It came from a historical background and a historical view. So the historical journey culminating in special needs and inclusive education can be summarized in 4 stages. The first stage is a stage of no rights, no right time. This was a stage where children with disabilities were not allowed to participate. They had no rights. Even as a parent, when you have a child with disability, they were not taking care of them. So initially, people with disabilities in this stage and other persons with vulnerable conditions were not considered as having human rights. So they would even kill them, they would even throw them. Hence, they were not provided education. So they had no rights. That is no rights time. Instead, they were being eliminated, as I have said. When you have no right, you can be eliminated. They were being eliminated by starving them to death, denying them medical care, denying them education, denying them any human rights that every person would enjoy. During that stage of no rights, persons with disabilities were nowhere to be seen. So this was the first stage that led to education of children with disabilities. Then the next stage, it was a segregated provision. The first stage of no right, persons with disabilities had no right to access education, had no right to live, they had no right to stay at home, they were being eliminated. Then there came stage 2, segregated provision. This was a stage that started recognizing human rights. Instead of eliminating them, let's put them somewhere. So during this time, disability was understood in 2 ways. The first way was a medical condition. So they looked at a person with disability as a medical condition and a problem of the individual, thus requiring treatment and provision of assistive devices. It was also looked at as a condition which renders a person to be needy or helpless, thus requiring sympathy and charity, the charity or welfare model. And this is where the missionaries came in and started special schools to cater for children with disabilities. The church missionaries recognized that they can learn and started special schools for them. And the first special school in Uganda was established in Madera in Soroti, which was followed by school for the deaf, and this marked the start of special education. So from the time of no rights, persons with disabilities were not recognized, and then the missionaries, the church missionaries came in and said, these people can learn. let's start special schools for them. And that's how they started going to school. The second stage was segregated provision, and now we are going to see the third stage, which is integrated provision. After the United Nations passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, there was a shift in thinking in Europe and America in a bid to implement this declaration, and on recognition that it was expensive to build and maintain many special schools or institutions. This led to the emergence of integrated service provision. So units for children with disabilities were set up in regular schools. The first integration effort in Uganda was the establishment of a unit for the blind children at Wanyange Girls Primary School in Jinja in 1965. So you remember the first special school was in Madera School for the Blind. This was specifically a special school for blind children. And now when it comes to integration, children with visual impairment, the blind, were integrated in Wanyange Girls Primary School as a unit for the blind. The fourth stage is inclusion. Inclusion or inclusive provisions. Arising from increase in human rights advocacy and the call for participation of persons with disabilities in all development processes, the global community through the United Nations embraced the move toward inclusion in the 1990s. So in the 1990s, that's when persons with disabilities started being included, children included in schools. This trend demands the use of human rights-based approach to service delivery. So you look at the rights of a person. You look at a person and then you provide the right. It calls for recognition of diversity in people and appreciation of the needs arising from the diversity. Inclusive education, inclusive health, inclusive development are the targets of this trend. The theme of the joint efforts of stakeholders advocating for inclusion is leave no one behind. So in this stage of inclusion, this is where we are. The introduction of UPE in 1997, the government of Uganda recognized the rights to education for everyone, and they gave priority to a girl child and a child with disability. So this was the beginning of ensuring that children with disabilities are included in education. And we should all emphasize the issue of leave no one behind. So as illustrated here in the trend, the colors, as you are seeing, they are children with different disabilities. You can see in the first circle how they are outside the circle, meaning they are excluded. They are nowhere, they have no rights. So whether they are living or not, it is none of anyone's business. So they are just out there. They even don't know what happens in the community. Then the next circle is a segregation, where they bring a start special school. There is a school for ordinary children and there is a school for children with disabilities, as you are seeing them. Then in integration, you can see they are in the mainstream, within the circle. They are within the circle, but they have their own unit, their own class. And then when it comes to inclusion, you can see they are all included. They are all within. Their needs must be catered for within the main setting. So when you look at how they are included, the justification is that in inclusion, people with disabilities must be included in education, be included in employment, be included in marriage. So this is very key, because when we keep segregation, after school, where do they go? They go in the community, and they will not be able to fit within the environment. So as we end this lesson, I hope you understand the trends of education of children with disabilities. Whatever we are seeing today happened happened for the person with disabilities started from far. Therefore, it's our responsibility to continue advocating for children with disabilities. In groups, you will discuss the benefits and the limitations of the following: segregated education setting and inclusive education setting to children with special needs education. And this will be presented in the next session or when we meet again. Thank you.